Okay, so in order to review, today our learning goal was to be able to learn the structure of the atom and be able to draw a model of Bohr atom, a Bohr model of the atom. So remember, a model is just kind of like it could be a diagram or like a word thing that reminds us of kind of helping us to explain what's going on. So atoms are things we can't see, so we use models in order to help our brains kind of wrap around them more. The Bohr model of the atom is the circular nucleus where I'm going to put in not only the element, but I'm also going to put the number of protons, the number of neutrons inside the circle, which represents the nucleus, and then I'm putting the electrons in and the different energy levels there. You're going to know that you got this, again, if you can correctly identify the number of protons, electrons, and neutrons in atoms and ions, and then draw Bohr models of both. So the key difference when you're drawing a Bohr model of an atom versus an ion is that inside the nucleus, you're putting that ion charge, and you're also including the appropriate number of electrons for the ion, okay? So that may mean that you're going to have a few more or a few less than what you had in the atom, okay? Obviously you would, because it's an ion, it's got some charge in there, okay? Essential question, how are atoms influenced by their subatomic particles? Well, the number of protons dictates exactly what element you have. So an element is defined by the number of protons that it has in its nucleus. The number of electrons will determine whether or not that particular atom is charged, okay? So if it's neutral, if it has the same number of electrons as it has protons, it is an ion if it has more or less electrons than protons, okay? If it has more electrons, it's negatively charged. If it has less electrons, it's going to be positively charged. The number of neutrons, we didn't talk about it here, but it forms an isotope. So what an isotope is where it has more or less neutrons in a nucleus than what the standard amount is. And that kind of is what makes that discrepancy up when you look at the atomic mass, why it's not always around figures, because sometimes atoms have more or less neutrons, depending kind of how they were formed and where they were formed. The key things to get out of here is just how to draw that diagram, and like what the appropriate format is for it, and how you can tell how many protons, neutrons, and electrons there are. And you need to know the difference between an atom and an ion. That is key to get out of this lesson. On the next slide, there's just a periodic table, so you need to remember what that periodic table is telling you. So remember that the rows represent how many is in each orbital, so that's pretty key standard for you to have. You need to know that stuff. And then kind of all of the other information that's given to you there in the key will help you be able to determine how many protons, neutrons, and electrons you have for any particular element or ion. If you have any questions about this lesson, make sure that you post them in the comments, or if you're, want to just email me directly your questions, you're more than welcome to do that as well.